Welcome to another episode of the IBC Guys. Today, though, it's just IBC Guys, singular. Mike is unable to join us. But what it does do is it gives me the opportunity to it's not a series, that's too strong of a word. But what I've been doing in Mike's absence is just kind of going through questions I tend to get as I work with people through their policies. So if you've listened to enough episodes, you can tell Mike is the brains behind this operation. I'd like to say I'm the beauty, but if you have watched a YouTube version of this thing, you know that's not the case. But what I work to do, is learn as much as I can from Mike, and then communicate that to those that I'm working with. And today's topic is one question that I get quite often. So we're going to talk through really kind of the mix between the base premium that exists in a policy that's created to leverage IBC, and then the paid up additions or PUA. There's other or not acronyms, synonyms, excuse me for that. Like different companies call that different things. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But kind of wanted to just talk through, hopefully it's a short episode, but hopefully talk through just the differences and the mixes that exist there, and how we try and balance that out in creating a policy. So before I get into that, I don't have my thing pulled up. We exist for three reasons that the podcast does. The first reason is to get information out there about IBC. We want people to understand it, and then having the head knowledge, then following the heart in terms of what's best for their family, yes or no, and determining that. The second reason we exist is to give actionable, implementable examples. How can this be used in daily life? So my hope today is that this podcast or this episode kind of falls into that category. Not It almost arms you is the term that comes. It prepares you. It provides you some working context that if you were to ever talk to anybody about IBC, hopefully it's Mike or I. We'd love to help you. But if you go in, I'd be happy to introduce you to other people that do it. If you go in and talking with them, you'll kind of have a working knowledge in terms of the semantics, the vocabulary that exists there, as well as how those things manifest into what you want. So hopefully it falls into category two. But category three is we want to spread this thing as far as we can. So if you would share, like, subscribe, all of our socials are down there. You're welcome to jump on there and try and contact us. We have a phone number, 507-205-2284. My email is Dave at familybankingsolutions.com. Mike's is Mike at familybankingsolutions.com. Shoot us a text. I mean, Mike or I will answer that phone if you call it. Same with text. If you want to email us, that's usually how people contact us. Be happy to set up a time to talk or answer any questions. I got somebody I hadn't met just sent me. There was no fluff. I kind of respect that in an email, but just ask a singular question. It was no "Hi Dave." I listened to your pod. It was none of that. It was blank, 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 blank. So I sent back a response, and we'll see where it goes. But I was happy to do that. If that's your thing, well, let's work through IBC that way. But jumping into the topic and jumping back to the topic I kind of started with, is we're talking about the difference between base and paid up additions. So if you don't know those two words or are unfamiliar with them, those are key vocabulary words in building your policy. And when I say build your policy, I want to make something very clear. There is no one way to build these. There are guiding principles. But if you go, I've had this happen. They'll go to an agent, and the agent's like, "This is the only way to do it." And I'm not calling that person a liar. I guess I wasn't part of those conversations. But there are a myriad of different ways to do these. And I would argue that the best way to do this is dependent on the client's needs. So if your agent that you're working with is not asking you questions on how you plan to strategize and leverage IBC, I would reach out to somebody else. There is no one right way. They do not have all the answers. They especially do not have the answers if they are not listening to you and learning about your family and how you're going to use this thing. Because depending on those responses, that will determine how the policy can and should be built. So just be wary of that. I kind of want to start with that. One of the goals that I have in working with people is I like to learn about them beforehand. It's not oh, you're interested in IBC, great. Here's your illustration. Let's go. It's what are we going to use it for? How long are we thinking? What's a long-term plan with IBC? What are we going to use to leverage through the policy? Are we talking, just a grocery bill each month? Are we talking farming equipment? Those are very different price points for those two different items or respective items. So to learn about people and how they're going to use it is the best method in determining what policy is best for the person. So again, if you go to somebody and they say, this is the one way to do it, I know best, listen to me. They're an expert. I'm not going to argue with that. They're qualified, that they're licensed to build these things. But is it the best one possible? I would be hesitant. So just make sure that you have someone that wants to learn about you. You're the client. You can drive this thing. And the goal again of this podcast is to provide information enough to help you drive this thing forward steadfastly and make sure you're getting exactly what you want. So starting there. Um, each policy. So after you've talked to with your agent about what you want, each policy has two main components. There's the base premium, and then there's what I like to call the paid up additions. I've heard it called plus ups. I've heard it so paid up additions, PUA, usually an acronym, but essentially what it's doing. So when you get into talking with an agent, depending on what company they use, they may term it a different thing. But essentially, you're buying death benefit early. You're paying it up faster. I paid up additions. In other words, I'm adding on to my paid up insurance to make my policy run faster. So there's the base. The base premium is pretty consistent in terms of vocabulary across companies. And then what I call the paid up additions. Again, there's synonyms for that all over the place. But if you understand what you're doing with that, you're buying additional death benefit. That's what you're looking for. So your policy is going to be built with those two components in mind, the base and the paid up additions. So I'm going to use that verbiage. The base is what drives your policy. So you could do a whole life policy. Let's use $10,000. You could pay $10,000 or put into your policy. You're not paying it, you're putting into your policy $10,000, and it could be completely in the base. That is a traditional whole life policy. I would not recommend doing that. If you have an agent that would, there certainly are given situations where that's beneficial. I would not recommend it if you're looking to leverage that with IBC. The agent gets their commissions off the base. That's where their commissions are driven. So if someone's working to propose to you a whole life policy and it's not being leveraged with IBC, this is not advice. That's not this what this is. Me personally, I would not go with that. It doesn't allow you to leverage IBC, but the base itself is what drives the insurance policy. So it's kind of like the foundation of your swimming pool. Let's say you're pouring the concrete. It's hard to swim in a pool without water, but your base is going to be the concrete. Okay, I don't know. I just made that example up. We'll see if it works. But in my mind, you probably can guess the paid up additions then are going to be the water. You need both to complement each other. But the base is the foundation of the insurance policy. So the base drives two things. It drives the death benefit. So the more base you get, the greater the death benefit grows quickly. So if you put money into the base, your death benefit's going to grow quickly. The second thing the base does as the foundation is it drives the growth of the policy over time. So it is something that is essential to the policy itself. It is not as flashy as the paid up additions, and I'll say why here in a second. But it is the foundation. If you can think of it as the concrete of your swimming pool, it drives the death benefit, which this is a life insurance policy. Death benefit is absolutely something that needs to be considered. A lot of times when people talk about IBC, the death benefit kind of gets pushed off to the side, which is understandable and it's okay as well. But one of the beautiful things about this is that it's there. And for me, if I were to pass away, that death benefit then go to my beneficiary, who's my wife. She would get the payout of the policies, which is it's a great thing. It does not necessarily fall into the IBC theory. It kind of, like I said, is often put to the side, but the base drives the death benefit. And the second thing it drives is the growth of the policy over time. So we'll talk about that here more in a bit. But the longer this policy is enforced or is maturing, the greater capacity that base has to grow your policy. So it drives the efficiency of the policy. So the whole goal is to have your money make money in this thing. The base is what drives that. So kind of defining that first. The second part, again, is the paid up additions. That's the water in your swimming pool. That's the fun thing to splash around. It comes second. You need to have your foundation, your concrete, but the paid up addition is the water. It's the flashy part. And you can build your pool. I mean, I am flying on this pool analogy. You can build your pool to be as big as you want it to be or as small as you want it to be. I mean, we're talking going to Walmart and buying one of those above ground pools, that you see in a backyard with little kids or something like that. Or we're talking $3 million home with a grandiose lap pool in it or something. I don't know. I'm not that fancy, so I don't know what fancy pools look like or how they're described. But you can build your pool to be any size you want. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. It's not the paid up additions in the base can be anything. We're talking about the two components and then the mix that those have, or the drive that those have in building a policy. So jumping back, the paid up additions is the water. It's the fun part. It's the splashy part. It tends to get people going on IBC at least in the early years. So when a policy is built, it has those two components. So I already mentioned there's no one right way or correct way to do this. And trying to expand on that a little bit, the mixture of base and paid up additions can always be varied. So let me give you a numerical example. In a base, so my default, what I find to be most efficient as well as the best death benefit, the combination, if let's use $10,000, the combination I find most efficient is building a 40% base and a 60% paid up addition. So what that means is if I have $10,000, $4,000 of that $10,000 is going to the base, and $6,000 of that $10,000 is going to the paid up additions. That is a very healthy mix or combination. But when I say these can be tailored, you can do any sort of mix up into a certain point. When we've talked about that, and I'll get to that in a second. But you can go 30-70, you can go 20-80, you could go 21-79, you could go 22-78. I mean, you can mix these and match these any way you want, up to what's called the MEC limit. And I think we've talked about the MEC limit. The MEC limit is the modified endowment contract. So essentially, it's the government saying, hey, you can't throw all your money in here and have it not be taxable events. Like you can't just leverage all the money you want. You can do it to a certain point because it's defined as an asset, but that is the MEC limit. So your combination is likely going to be well, I know for a fact your MEC limit is going to be determined by your combination, but that limit is determined by three things: your gender, age, as well as your health rating. But just because you can get to, let's call it that MEC limit, doesn't necessarily mean you want to. If you go back and remember, the base drives the efficiency. So let's use like a 20% base, 80% paid up additions example. You're going to have a lot of water in that pool. You can move money in around, and paid up additions is you can go use it right away. It's dollar for dollar the first year. So if you put $8,000 in, again, I'm using 20% example, put $8,000 in your paid up additions, I can go use $8,000 right away. It's dollar for dollar the first year. What your policy will not do is it will not grow as efficiently as a base that has a 30% percentage, or a 40%, or even a 50%. If you go 50%, 50% in terms of your mix, you only have $5,000 to use right away, dollar for dollar. But you give that thing 3 to 4 years and you're making money very quickly because your base is driving the efficiency of your policy. So the bigger your base, the faster your policy is going to grow over time. That hockey stick, if you can think of an exponential graph, that hockey stick starts to go up in your graph a lot sooner if your base is healthy. If it's a 20% base, it's going to take much longer for that base to drive the efficiency. So another way to say that is your policy is not going to grow as efficiently. You have a lot of money to use right away, and that money is still in the ledger, making you your internal rate of return and your dividends and interest. So that does not change, but it doesn't make it as quickly because your base is, Mike calls it skinny. Your policy is skinny. Your base is really small and your paid up additions are really big. So it's a skinny policy and it's not going to be as efficient. So jumping back, the default I have is 60-40. Now, to give you an example, just worked with a client. We started at 60-40 and then we continued to work through, did some illustration. He's like, I don't know. I don't know if this is really kind of, it's what I want in terms of the policy, but I think we can do better. So we just started running illustrations and we settled on a 65-35 split. He's like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want. He had a specific item for the paid up additions that first year. He's like, this is perfect. Let's roll with it. So he made the base as big as he could while still meeting the goals he had with his paid up additions. But he had the policy started. All that money he's running through is going to come back to him over time. But then he took the paid up additions, took the cash value loan, went and did what he needed to do. And now he has the loan set up to pay back. And each year he's going to fund that thing and it's going to continue to grow. So 35% base is pretty solid. He's a young guy. He's a healthy guy. It's going to grow very efficiently. So I'm kind of rabbit trailing down. If we get a chance to talk, if you get a chance to talk with Mike, is where I was headed. But if we get a chance to talk, you and I will have the same discussion. We really kind of want to, and one of our goals, we want to know what you're going to do with the money. What's your goal? How are you going to leverage it? Because that will help determine the combination of the two. So we talked about MEC limit. We talk about making it fit how you want. Again, be careful. There is no one right or one correct way to do this. So if your agent is proposing a one fits all, I would recommend talking with somebody else. I don't run into that a whole bunch. I have, but call me. Don't do a policy with me. Call me. I'll introduce you with people that you want to go work with because there's a lot of great people in this that do a lot of good work. Looking at my list here, we mentioned, PUA is always dollar for dollar. So for that first year, every dollar you put in, so let's go back to a 60-40 mix between the base and the paid up additions. Every dollar you put in the paid up additions, you can leverage in cash value. You can go out and use that. That's the beauty in the banking system. The 40%, the first year you get no dollars, no money. So think of it as starting like a franchise. So there's a cost to starting your policy. And in that first year, your base yields no cash value. So it's usually between 60 and 62% that you can leverage. If you put $10,000 in, I can leverage between $6,000 and $6,200. And that varies based on the three things: the age, gender, and health rating. But it's about 62%, and that is dependent on the split. So if you do a 30-70 split, it'll be about 70%. But again, your base is not as healthy in a 70-30. So it's all things to weigh out. I'm trying to just give the information to you, have you process it. If you go back and listen again, hopefully it makes more sense the second time. Excuse me. But dollar for dollar, the first year paid up additions is you put $1 in, you get $1 out. The first year for base, you get no cash value. So if you do a 60-40 split, those $4,000 are purely to start your policy. As you go down the years, and I did some quick research, and again, this is dependent on those three things. It's dependent on health rating, age, and gender. Those three things can combine into millions of combinations. A 41-year-old is much more efficient than a 65-year-old. And then every year in between is different efficiency. Gender, females, you're more efficient than males because we can be bing bong sometimes and we die faster than females statistically. And then finally, the health rating. So if you have a poor health rating, that's going to limit the efficiency of your policy. So again, tons of combinations, but in general, with a 60-40 split, I kind of did some numbers. So looking at your base, the first year it's $0 in terms of cash value. Every year, your paid up additions is dollar for dollar every year. So first year you put, again, 60-40 split, put in $10,000, you got $6,000 to use. The second year you put in $10,000. In your paid up additions, you got $6,000 to use. Okay. Now you'll have more than $4,000 to use the second year because now it's very minimal in your second year, but your base is starting to generate cash value. But in year four, so the fourth year, typically, again, you can do illustrations that don't show this, and we're doing a 60-40 split. But in year four, your base tends to be dollar for dollar. So if you put $10,000 in, your base at $4,000 is going to yield $4,000 of cash value, and your paid up additions is going to yield $6,000 of cash value. Dollar for dollar. Put $10,000 in, you get $10,000 to go use. You extrapolate that to between years 7 and 8, and every dollar you put into your base gives you about $1.50 in paid up additions. So PUA, 6,000, 6,000 every year. It's the same thing. But between years 7 and 8, when you put $4,000 in, you get $1.50 out. So you put $4,000 in, and automatically you have $6,000 to go use. So your base in year 7 to 8 has made $2,000 just for you putting your money in. You've done no work. You get to borrow that out right away as soon as it posts. You get to go use it how you choose to do so. Between years 10 to 12, every dollar you put in, you get $2 in cash value. You are doubling your money on your base. So you put $4,000 in, again, 40-60 split on a $10,000 level, $4,000 in, you have $8,000 as well as your $6,000. So you've put in $10,000 and you have $14,000 you can go use. So as soon as you post your money that anniversary year, you have an additional $4,000 that's yours. It's yours to go do with what you want. You've not worked for it. The policy's doing it for you, but you get to go use it as you choose. Between years 17 and 20, you're talking $3 for every dollar you put in your base. So $4,000 in, you're talking $12,000 in terms of base plus your six. So you put in 10 and you're at $18,000 that you get to go use. So hopefully my math is mathing and all that. But you go back to Mike's statement. Every dollar you run through these things comes back to you. So as these add up over time, the money you put in, even in those first years where your cash value for your base is $0, you give it enough time. In most cases, it's around 20 years. If you've put in $10,000, so 20 times 10 is 200,000, you will have $200,000 in cash value that you can use. So then you take that, because there's no subtraction sign on your ledger, past year 20, now it's only growing. And you can see, I kind of did the numbers for you. You know, go to year 25, this is a guess, it could be $4. So every dollar you put in your base, you get $4 out. So my hope is that shows you why it's healthy to have a solid foundation in terms of a base. That concrete needs to be well cured. Man, hopefully I sound like I know what I'm talking about. I know nothing about concrete, but I know that verbiage. So make sure your base is well cured. That way you can throw money in your water. You can splash around for years and years and years to come. But that solid foundation is going to drive the efficiency of your policy, and it's going to make you money just by doing what you were already doing. Running money through there, borrowing cash value, going using it, and putting it back in just like you would a checkbook. Money in, money out, money in, money out. All the while that base is sitting there earning you internal rate of return and dividends and interest. The PUA does as well. It's just not as efficient as the base. The base drives the efficiency of the policy. So you want to use the money to live life. Again, you put the dollars in, years 17 and 20, you're getting $3 for every dollar you put in. You can go do with that what you want. Like, there's no limits. I know I was talking with somebody, they couldn't get their mind past qualified plans. We were talking specifically 529. That's supposed to be used for education. Same with an HSA, unless you're using that for health stuff. You're going to get charged for it. And there's limits on how you can use your money. There are no limits in this. You can take it out. I mean, Tim Schneider's been on the podcast. He said you can take it out and go light it on fire in your yard. Like, no one cares what you do with it. So go live life with it. But every dollar you put in that 20th year, you're getting $3 to go spend. It's yours. You don't owe it back. That's how your policy has made its money. You've done the due diligence. You've been diligent and steadfast in funding it. Go enjoy and reap the benefits. So that's some of the beauty in this. And then the last thing I had you're earning money on the base, you would be making, or you're earning the money the bank would be making on you. So can't even read my own writing. That's embarrassing. But hey, we are what we are on the IBC guys. The whole premise of this is as you leverage money. I'll give you a great example. Um, we were doing business stuff. So my wife and I, we work to give. God has blessed us. He's not blessed us as much as others, but he's blessed us more than most. Put it that way. We want to give. So I wrote a check. Um, my wife and I have a foundation. We wrote a check to the foundation, and then I went into move the money, and the bank said there's a hold on it. I called, so I have a good relationship with a guy up at the bank. It's a big, well-known bank. It's not a local credit union or anything like that. Like it's downtown Manhattan bank. And I said, "Hey, my guy, why is there a hold on this money?" He's like, "I don't know. I'll have to look into it." I said, "Well, I want to go give this money. I mean, this gentleman's helped me set up the foundation, so it's legit. It's got its own account numbers, and he helps us with that." He's like, "Oh, okay. I'll see what I can do." But I share that story because I was very frustrated that it was my money. It was posted. It was legit. They put a hold on it for whatever reason. I don't know if it was too much money. Who knows? But it's my money. And I was frustrated that I couldn't use it in the capacity I chose to or I wanted to. I mean, it took a couple days and we're good, but I had to sit on them and wait on them. And that was frustrating. With this, there is none of that. There are no questions asked. There's no limits to what you can do with it. But it also allows you to make money. My guess is they wanted my money in there. I don't know if thought I was going to forget about it, but they can take that and loan it out, up to 9 times. Fractional reserve banking. That's a Mike thing. Let him get into that. He gets fired up about that stuff. But they wanted my money to stay with them. And I understand that because they make money off of that. But that is exactly what IBC does. IBC allows you to make money off money you're going to leverage anyway. So by running our finances through these policies over 20 years, I'm going to run money through there and I'm going to make $3 on every dollar that's posted in there. And I'm going to have that as mine forever to go use as I want to. So you got to give it time. This is certainly not a get rich quick scheme. There are certainly some understanding that has to be had to be able to do that. But that's where Mike and I come in. That's really our desire. I had this conversation with somebody else even the other day. They were very, very stern, I'll say. I don't know if that's the correct word, but they really wanted to know what we're getting out of this. So I'm transparent with as many people as I can. There is a commission that we get from the insurance company. I will also say I would not be able to support my family on the commissions. We build these in a way. I think I mentioned it. The base is what drives the policy. So a lot of agents who don't utilize IBC will want that base to be as big as it can get. I want the base to be what the client wants. And sometimes that's a skinny base. So my efforts aren't as forthcoming. I don't know how I want to say this. They're not as big as some others. And that's okay. I'm not in it to make the money. I am in it to help people. But we don't charge money to sit down. I mean, you get to a big firm that does this, they'll charge you $500 to sit down with them just to talk about it. There's no management fees. We don't have any assets under management. Um, like an IUL. People will try it. Don't do an IUL. Again, that's my opinion. That is not advice. I would recommend not doing an IUL. I'm not going to do one because that is based on term insurance, which as you get older will price itself out. It will eat away at any cash value you have. And it's all based in the stock market, which is volatile. But then the agent gets assets under management. And every year they get a commission on that. We get one-time commission for the first year in terms of the base. So again, I'm just trying to be transparent. I don't know if other agents would get mad at me about me sharing that. I don't know. Maybe I should have talked to Mike before that. But I say all this because the goal is to help you get the money the bank's going to earn from you. Plain and simple. Run the money through the policy, start getting it on the ledger, and as that thing matures, Every dollar you put in is going to yield $2 to $3 coming out the other end 2 or 3 days later when it posts in the policy, and you get to go use it as you want. So I always talk longer than I want to. I'm sorry if you're listening and that frustrates you. I have to laugh. I called Mike for business today. It was supposed to be a 15-minute call, it was like an hour. And we talked a lot of business, but we also talked other stuff. We talked basketball, talked Michigan football. So try not to rabbit trail too much on this. I do tend to. There's so much to it. It's exciting. But if you have questions, let us help you out. There's certainly no pressure. I got a call. I keep giving you examples. We're getting lots of calls, which is great. But another person, they called and we set up a meeting and said, I want to talk with you, but I'm not going to do a policy with you. That was how they started the conversation. I was like, great. That alleviates any and all pressure you may feel. Let's talk. And we spent a half an hour answering questions. And I'm happy to do that. If that's something you want to do, give me a shout. 507-205-2284. My email is dave@familybankingsolutions.com. If you want old sage wisdom, and you can tell Mike I call him old. If you want old sage wisdom, email Mike@familybankingsolutions.com. Um, he he's got I asked him, I talked to him this morning. And again, he couldn't make it today. He's got a lot going on. Namely 8 little puppies. So his dog had puppies. I don't know if I've shared that on here. So he's up to his eyeballs in puppies. But he shared with me a good topic he wants, and it's been a couple weeks in the making. But all that does is rev him up because it's running through his mind. So I'm excited to get that out to everybody the next time we get a chance. But thanks for listening. My hope is it helped. Paid up additions, base, the mix between the two, kind of talking about the relationship each of those have with each other, and then how that relates to how you can go build and advocate for yourself in building your policy that fits your needs. So if I can help with that, I'd be happy to do so. If not, my hope is that you do go talk to somebody else that does IBC and have a more complete understanding of what you're asking for as you go ask for it. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one, and hope you have a good day.